So you're going to write a thesis, maybe an undergraduate thesis, maybe a master's thesis, and you're all ready to do the economics. You've learned a lot of economics in school and you're ready to apply it. But what people forget very often is that this is a written document. The writing is super important. Old professor of mine, he would say he'd spend 50% of the time on a paper on the introduction, and he had one-page introductions. Writing is very, very important, and while we don't teach it because we assume you know how to do it, and there's only time to teach economics, it is crucially important, and so as you're going through your thesis, let's focus on that a little bit. Let me talk about it. A couple of other things. This is a written document. Nothing counts if it's not on the paper. Right? You're going to do loads of things that don't show up on the paper, but none of it counts. It's only the written stuff that counts. So you have to write it down. You have to show your thought process. Right? You can't. So why did you choose this data set? What is missing from this data set? When that 1 year was divided by 2, and then you decided that, no, it really should have been multiplied by 2, and that was a screwy data error. Where did that come from? What was your thought process that made you do that? With the missing data, how did you deal with the missing data? You have to show all of that on the paper. Otherwise, it never happened, right, as far as your grade is concerned. So what I would suggest as you start making decisions, and all of your decisions at this stage are going to be very tentative, but nevertheless, sit down, have a big document, and just write a couple sentences about each decision. Here's this thing I did with, July 2012 with that data. It was screwy. Here's how I dealt with July 2012. Write it down. Here's why I did it. This is similar to how so-and-so did it. It's different from how these other guys did it. This is what I did, right? And just collect all these snippets, because you will forget what you did, right? And a lot of them you'll go back and you'll change your mind. Yeah, I'm not going to do it that way. I'm going to do it some other way. So what? You'll collect all these things, because writing is about rewriting. And if you're doing it all at the last minute, you will forget all of these things, right? And you won't know, and then you won't have anything to show, because the decisions happened, but you can't show them on paper. They didn't happen, right? Then we're just left wondering, right? Someone was reading your thesis and they're saying, I worked with that data and there was that weirdness in July 2012. You remember when the statistics office burnt down and they lost all that stuff, and now they don't seem to have dealt with the July 2012 thing at all, but you did, but you didn't say, so it's not there because it didn't happen. Of the thing, you're selling yourself, you're presenting your work, right? The work is not you. The work is what comes out, right? But the thesis will get graded, but what we're really looking for, are you thinking like an economist? Are you careful? Do you know how to use the tools of your trade? You do not have to have the definitive answer on anything. You will not have the definitive answer on anything, but are you aware of where the problems are in your analysis? So suppose, well, let's do an experimental one. I did this thing, I got my survey, I sent it off, and I got a bunch of high school kids to do it. And it's really, my original story was about 40-year-old investment bankers. And a bunch of high school kids did my survey. Well, clearly, external validity is a problem. The people's natural tendency is to say, no, external validity is great because high school kids turn into investment bankers by the miracle of money, apparently. But, and it's true, they do, some don't, some become artists, you don't know. But that's worrying, right? If you're reading that, you say, really? But if you say, look, we really wanted to do investment bankers. We couldn't get investment bankers to fill out our survey. We stuck there. We gave free cocaine at the thing, but nothing. That won't pass the maybe it will. I don't know. Try it out. Give them cocaine too. We'll see what happens. But if you say, look, we wanted it. I just couldn't get it. Here's what we got. I'm very concerned about the external validity, but this is what I got. Here's what I can learn from it. And very importantly, here's what I can't learn from it. That's a very good thesis, right? It's not what you wanted, right? It's not the end all be all of this international investment banker thing, but you're being sensible, you're thinking carefully, you had reason to think it might work, but what can you do? It didn't. And you learn what you can from it. So you should be learning as much as you can from your data, but not more than you can from your data. Right? It's useful to have an elevator pitch, like with my students, partly because my memory is just not there. What was your name again? But also because you have to say what your thing is over and over again. What are you trying to do? So having a 2-minute elevator pitch where you say, this is what I'm trying to do, and repeating it many times as you go through, and it'll change as you go along, obviously, right? But that's really helpful. I think one of my first papers I did, empirical paper, terrible, never published, never sent to a journal. Yeah, it was embarrassing. But it was this paper, and it started out with a really good idea. Like, partly was my advisor, partly was mine. I'm still to this day thinking that's a really good idea. And so I had this novel data, and I was going to use it to exploit this thing. But then you get in the forest and the trees, and you're lost in the woods, and there's the path, and you're off the path, and then you have to go back. And I forgot. I mean, I didn't forget, but I forgot to focus on that main thing. And then I just had a bunch of regressions about houses and how much rooms were worth in a house. And yeah, it was terrible. It's very easy to lose the forest for the trees. And so knowing where you're going, where you're trying to go, you can change it as you go along, but knowing where you're going, super helpful. You're going to, and by the time you're done with it, you're going to hate the whole stupid thing. Because everyone before you has it, you're no different. It's going to be the same. It's good to remind yourself that there's a point, and do it often. Like, write your first paragraph. Now, you don't have anything yet, but write your first paragraph. Why are you interested in this thing? Right? Just a paragraph. But put it on paper. Why you're interested, what you're hoping to find. Right? You won't get there. You'll find something else, but you need to know what you're doing, because otherwise it's just numbers, 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 and you'll be dizzy from numbers. You'll have a million regressions where in fact you only want one. Right? What you want is you want one core, in terms of the empirical stuff, you want one core regression, benchmark, one regression with their treatment, and maybe some others, but those aren't important. Those are, checking to see that things are consistent and that it's robust and all that kind of stuff. But you got to have one regression that's the core. Know what it's trying to do now.